This is Nigel Richards. He is a two-time French World Scrabble Champion and the 2024 Spanish World Scrabble Champion. But Nigel is from New Zealand, a country where effectively nobody speaks French or Spanish, including Nigel. So how did he win these championships? Nigel simply got bored after winning the English World Scrabble Championship 5 times, so he memorized the French and Spanish Scrabble dictionary so that he could run laps around these cheese-eating surrender monkeys and gorditos. So why does this matter, and what can this tell us about learning languages? Well, knowing words in another language gives you a lot more than just Scrabble street cred, and there's a reason that research on language learning or learning anything points to the size of your vocabulary as the key indicator of success in academic pursuits, in reading level, and fluency. In this video, let's walk through the 4 phases of growing your vocabulary when learning another language, and why it's the secret weapon to your success. And don't worry, it doesn't involve memorizing any dictionaries. Here are the 3 pillars of why vocabulary is so important before we get to those 4 phases. First, language is made of words, so you need to know words. Yes, grammar is important for how the words work together, but your brain can do a lot of the filling in once you understand all of the individual components of a sentence. Second, actively growing your vocabulary is a side activity and should be done to complement all the time that you're spending immersing and studying a language. Most of your time should be spent immersing and getting real contact with the language, just like most of the food that you should eat should be nutritional. Focusing your time on vocabulary is like eating spices. It's dry if that's all that you eat, but it complements other things nicely and makes the overall experience better. And third, bang for your buck, vocabulary review has the highest return on investment for language learning. Effective vocab study can be done in just a few minutes a day, and there are ways to make it very engaging. I use the open source platform Anki to make all of my own cards, and many of them include visual or audio. If you find Duolingo fun, I guarantee you there is an actually valuable way to learn a language that doesn't just keep you tapping buttons inside of an app. A tool like Anki can teach you new words with text alongside audio and entertaining visuals. Look at the visual that I added to my note card to learn the German word entweichen. And yes, I learned the word chin based on
I am a crimson chin! Here comes the crimson chin!
And now we're ready for the 4 phases of building your vocabulary. Phase 1 of learning vocabulary in a new language is to pick a specific and limited goal of what you want to start with. This will lay a foundation for you in the language and gives you a meaningful but short-term win. I recommend starting with Gabriel Weiner's Your First 625, where the best-selling author of Fluent Forever has put together a list of 625 words that are useful, common, and interesting. It's a mix of nouns, adjectives, and verbs that relate to everyday life so that the language you're learning comes to life, rather than just being stuck in a textbook or a class. Once you find the right pace, maybe learning 10 new words per day, the magic of starting like this is that it is a SMART goal. SMART here is an acronym for specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. You know your progress toward learning all 625. You have a stack of words to learn, so there's no ambiguity about what you're chasing and how to move towards it. These are words that are interesting but common enough to make an impact. If you learn 10 of them a day, you're done in 2 months. Learning all of them will be challenging, but it's doable, and you'll be proud of the accomplishment at the end. There are other lists that you can pick from, or you could just choose the vocab in the textbook that you're working through and follow the same process. But phase 1 of building your vocabulary is to pick a challenging but doable goal and do it. Phase 2 of learning vocabulary is to begin collecting words that matter to you as you engage with the language. Maybe you watch a Netflix show with subtitles in your target language, or you watch a video from the Easy German YouTube channel and you pick out useful but interesting words as you go. When I did this with German, I found everything interesting, so I made note cards for everything. But this may have been a mistake because as a beginner, I probably didn't need to know the words for butcher or divided by. I will definitely be more selective with words when I start learning a new language, but I wanted to tell you exactly what I did with German because I just didn't stop, and now I know more than 10,000 words. The process of finding and choosing what words to actively add to your vocabulary is often called sentence mining here on the internet, and there are plenty of other resources for tips and tricks and workflows for how to do this well, but the basic principle is very simple. Build your vocabulary based on what you're seeing out there in the wild in your target language, not based on a textbook or a class or some lowest common denominator list. And it's cool because you begin to connect the individual words to the context in which you first heard them. From 3 years ago, I still remember learning the German word Gehirnerschütterung, which means concussion, when reading about why woodpeckers don't get headaches. As your vocabulary continues to grow in phase 2, the key benefits are that you're learning words that matter to you and you're connecting them to the context in which you're operating. Immersion with entertaining and level-appropriate content is one of the best ways to build your vocabulary and learn a language. And Lingopie, the sponsor of today's video, is a great resource for watching and listening to great content. Lingopie is a streaming platform for language learners with over 3,000 hours of original content, whether you're just starting out or if you're looking for something more advanced. Lingopie was built from the ground up for language learning via immersion and is an especially valuable tool for making the most of quality and entertaining content. I recently used Lingopie to watch the award-winning show Dark on Netflix, which gave me my first foray into sci-fi character-led TV in German and also really strengthened my conversational listening skills. I'm also rewatching Disney classics in German via the platform, which has been very nostalgic and useful. They now support 11 languages within the platform itself, and the integration with Netflix and Disney Plus means culturally significant and personally meaningful content can now be used for extensive and intensive language immersion. You pick if you want their interactive subtitles in just your target language or native language, or both, or zero, and these subtitles are exquisitely done with responsive and non-obtrusive resources, so you can watch, look up a quick word, and then you're back to watching. Turning these lookups into note cards in the platform with one click makes the experience that much better and is a seamless way to search out useful and interesting vocab. Plus, if you're a reader, their short stories share the same features with an audiobook-style feel. The recently launched TV apps for Roku, Google, and Fire TV also bring language learning to a big screen. I recommend Lingopie as a great tool built for using great content to learn a language, and if you're interested, Lingopie has a 7-day free trial and 55% off of their annual plan. Links are in the description down below, and thank you to Lingopie for partnering on this video. Now we move on to Phase 3, transitioning from learning the language to using the language as a tool. Phase 3 is about letting the language spread to other areas of your life, whether that's interests and hobbies, or if you've moved to a new country or started a new job and you need the language to navigate aspects of daily life. Here are a few examples. I've loved astronomy since I was a little kid, so when I was learning German, I began watching LP in die Astronomie und Wissenschaft to keep up with space exploration and astronomy news delivered by a delightful middle-aged German man, and that way I was keeping up with Mars missions and SpaceX developments and solar activity. And was it necessary for me to learn 140 bird species in Hebrew? Absolutely not. Am I glad that I did? Yes. Having accepted the fact that you and my parents may think
You kind of wasted your 30s though with that whole bird watching phase.
Learning all of those bird species helped me better understand colors and anatomy and trees and general geography of Israel, all done in Hebrew. And beyond hobbies and interests, there's plenty of vocab to be found in daily life. Think about in your target language. Could you describe what you had last night for dinner and how you prepared it? If you ordered something online and it got lost in the mail, could you describe the box, the product inside, and your address? If you need to go to the doctor, could you explain what's hurting you and why, all in your target language? And what about describing to a friend your frustration with trying to file taxes? Think about the last 7 days of your life. I guarantee you there are hundreds, if not thousands of words that you could learn just so that you can describe what's going on in life. Phase 3 is about exploring more and more domains of your life. And hey, it happens to be in a new language. The endgame for many language learners is speaking, and speaking eloquently. And Phase 4 is about using speaking in another language as a way to identify gaps in your vocabulary and skills. There's a truism about speaking another language where people say that in order to hone your mind and your skills, you need to find a way to say what you want using what you already know. That means no translating and no asking people for words. While that's true for building comfort and confidence and creativity, sometimes there is just the right word or the right phrase for when you're speaking. So you can say, I went up a rock, and people might understand what you mean, but you should learn the word to climb. By trying to speak on a variety of subjects, you find the gaps in your vocabulary and your abilities, and you can plug those up one by one as you come across them. You can rely on conversations that come up over the course of a day or as you're meeting with friends, but it's very easy to plateau and rely on your current level. To progress intentionally, it can be helpful to record yourself speaking on a given topic for 10 minutes. It can be audio or video, and then listen back to yourself. Anytime that you pause, is that a word that you didn't know? Or could you have explained things a bit more clearly? There's a real beauty in this process because you're identifying not only the individual words to strengthen your vocabulary, but also your mastery of how these words work together. And there are hundreds of word pairs and grammar structures that you need to know. For example, in English, you say, I'm going to the store, or I'm going to the movies. While in German, you would say, ich gehe in den Laden, nicht zu den Laden. Since you're building your vocabulary and speaking skills based on what you're trying to say, you know that it's important and you know that it's relevant to you. Plugging up these holes one by one is the very long and very rewarding Phase 4 of growing your vocabulary. For me, with a dictionary containing 150,000 entries, there's plenty more to learn, and I hope walking through these 4 phases has been helpful. This video is focused on a self-study context, but if you're in a course or you're preparing for a test and you also go through phases 2 through 4, I guarantee you will be miles ahead of any other students who are studying alongside you. I am very curious to hear about your experience growing your vocabulary as opposed to just focusing on grammar, and if you have any other thoughts on these phases. And if you don't, Just let me know what your favorite word is in the language that you're learning. And if you've made it this far in the video and you're not subscribed, hopefully I've earned a subscription. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.